Welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Psychiatrist Podcast. Today, it's an absolute honor and a privilege and a joy to welcome the one and only Hereditary Chief Phil Lane Jr., who is the founder of Four Worlds International Institute. He is a revolutionary spiritual leader here on the planet, one of the most influential Native American chiefs, in my humble opinion. He has been serving humanity for the last 55 years, preaching about the unity of humanity. And most importantly, he does this from a place of compassion. He does this from a place of humility. You'll often see him walking around, shaking the hands of every single person in the camp. And he's carrying this beautiful mission for his people and a global vision of peace on earth, the lesser peace on earth by 2030. So it's an absolute joy and an honor to welcome in Hereditary Chief Phil Lane Jr. Chief, could you start us off with maybe a word of prayer, and then we'll jump right into it?
Thank you so much, my dear brother. Oten Kashla Wakantaga, Creator of the universe, most beloved one, all powerful one, most kind one, most compassionate one, ever forgiving one. O most beauteous one, most glorious one, O ancient of days, O blessed beauty. We call upon your holy power at this time to infuse into our hearts and souls and minds of all those who are listening, who will be listening, who are relatives of our human family, that what we share may uplift their lives, and that our hearts might be open also to receive that inspiration that's always coming to us from all those around us. We just give thanksgiving, Creator, that we're alive at this incredible day of the fulfillment of all the sacred prophecies. And we honor all the tribes and nations, the four directions, from the south, from where comes new life, the west, from where comes thunder, lightning, and rain, to the north, where comes the white purifying snows to purify our hearts and minds, to the east, from where comes the red sunrise. We ask all those tribes and nations to come together in unity and harmony, as we've always done over these past 55 years. And Creator of all good things, we honor, respect Father Sky and all those masculine elements of life. We ask that we might humble ourselves and realize that the overabundance of these masculine qualities has brought humanity to the brink of destruction. It's time for all of us to embrace the divine feminine within ourselves, and also to respect and honor that same divine feminine wherever it may be. That these are the qualities, these are the spiritual qualities that are going to lead humanity to the long promised, prophesied in traditions throughout Mother Earth of peace on earth. Haulimicante washtelo, shunkmano meado, chinupasapa meado, haulimicante washte. Aho. Aho.
Aho, aho, aho. And so it is done. Thank you, Chief. I've had the absolute joy and honor of saddling up with Chief Phil Lane Jr., and so I've gotten to know him. Chief, for those who don't know you, who might be listening and tuning in for the first time, you've had quite the life. You've had, when I listen to your stories, you've had so many experiences, from a wrestler at University of Washington to all of the stories riding around that you've heard from your father and from your grandfather. Could you share with the people here a little bit about your hero's journey in this lifetime, Chief Phil Lane?
Yeah, sure. Well, I was born in an Indian residential school, Indian boarding school called Haskell Institute, where my mother, who's a member of the Chickasaw Nation, and my father, who is a member of the Yankton Sioux tribe of South Dakota, met. And of course, I'm very thankful for that, although there are many different things that happened in boarding schools that weren't so pleasant. But they met there. My mom was 13, my dad was 17. They corresponded for 10 years. My father told me when he saw my mother, he said, "Son, as soon as I saw your mother," I said, "That's the woman I'm going to marry." 10 years later, He said he was in the military. It was World War II. He'd saved his money. He'd actually gone to university, the first native person from that area to go to a university. He got a degree in forestry. Took him 5 years to go a 4-year degree because he had such poor education from Haskell. But after he'd saved his money, had his degree, it was during the war, he had a month leave. And so in October 1943, he arrived in Sulphur, Oklahoma, right at the heart of the Chickasaw Nation. He had $3,000 in one hand. He had his degree in the other. This is what he says now. Of course, my mother would say, "Oh, come on." He'd say, "I came to your mother and I said, I've come to claim what's mine." And then of course, he had his degree and he had his funds and so forth. I arrived about 9 months later, so I can remember very clearly. Although I used to tease my mom. I used to tease my mom all the time because she was from boarding school, get very proper, So I said, yes. I said, my parents got married in January 1944, and I was born July 3rd, 1944. Oh, no, Phil, no. We can't have any of that. No. That was not over, Phil. It wasn't January. So, from there, I began my journey, and I ended up in the northwest of the United States in a little place called Umatilla, Oregon, up along the Columbia River, and then to a place called Walla Walla, Washington, where I really, I guess, found my way of at that time of expressing myself was through athletics. I really was extremely shy in terms of when speaking. I was kind of a typical quote unquote jock, so to speak. But I loved sports because it was a way for me to get out my feelings. And it was something I excelled in, and it gave me a lot of good confidence and so forth. And then I went on to the University of Washington, where I received a master's in public administration. And
Chief, tell me about the football team that would come out to watch you wrestle.
Oh yeah, well,
yeah. Tell me about your reputation at the University of Washington.
Well, what happened was that I started at the University of Washington, started wrestling for them. I was captain of the freshman team there, and then I went over to Olympic College and went over there to wrestle. And I really trained to the point where I was just like one muscle, so to speak. And so, of course, I really got along with the football players because everybody showered together and so forth. But they used to like to come watch me wrestle because every wrestling match I'd kind of do some new thing to get them cheering, so to speak. If I look back now, I have a lot of compassion for my opponents because, like in one match, I wanted to see just how many points can you run up in a wrestling match. Well, today, if somebody's ahead 9 points, they stop the match because you're so far ahead that there's no way that the person can win. Well, anyway, I went on, and it so happened this team I used to compete against high school, they came over to wrestle Olympic College. So I think the score ended up being 33-1, and only 1 point that I gave him was when I let him up so I could take him down and get 2 more points. But those were wild days. I have to say that. I remember, I was training at the University of Washington wrestling. As we had to go to school was through that scholarship, and I went over with a friend to their having kind of a party-like thing happening. And, I wasn't paying any attention to anybody. I just wanted to go there and see if there was anybody I could meet. And I really couldn't get into the party side of drinking and things because I was training. And there was a great big tall Marine who had just come back from Vietnam, was kind of holding court in the kitchen. And I didn't really care about, no disrespect, I didn't care much for the military because what I'd known they'd done to the Dakota people. But, as I walked by, this great big tall Marine said, "Shorty, who do you think you are?"
Mm.
So I said, "Well, I said, yeah." I said, "Well, let's find out who you are." I said, "Okay." So I stepped outside. Of course, I had him down in about 2 seconds in a fireman's carry. In a what they call a guillotine. I had him down. I had his head here. So I remember I'd gotten into it when I was 18 over in Europe, when I hitchhiked over to Europe, and I hitchhiked from Walla Walla to New York City and worked our way in a freighter over to Europe. We spent a year hitchhiking around, and I ended up getting into it with a paratrooper over there. And I'd let him up, actually, because I physically, once I got a hold of somebody, whether they were bigger than me or whatever, I could put them into what they call a guillotine, and they kind of were helpless. So he'd given up. So I got up. When he got up, he jumped me from behind and grabbed my eyes and so forth. So I had this thing of, well, some people don't fight fair. Of course, these days I would never get in any fights with anybody because you'd probably get shot. But anyway, I remember so clearly. I stood up and I saw him move behind me. And I took a turn around and gave him a big kick. What I didn't realize was this Army guy who didn't like the Marines. He gave him a few more kicks after I left. So I went and I had blood over my hands. I washed them off, and my friend, my good brother Greg Mulhare, who was such a kind heart, and we learned so much, from others. He had such a kind heart, and he came to me and said, "Phil, we've got to help this guy." I said, "What do you mean we have to help this guy? He doesn't know where he is." And so, sure enough, we drove him to the hospital and put him in emergency right away because his eye was so wrecked. And of course, his mom came, and she was so upset. Of course, here's her son in emergency. They're thinking about removing his eye. I said, "Oh, who did this? Who did this?" And I said, "I did." And I'd do it again. But then, she told me what happened. She said, "Oh, yeah," she said, "I'm so sorry. He's not been the same. He came home after all this time in Vietnam, and he found his girlfriend had left him for his best friend, this and that." And so then, and the reason I talk about experience is not because I found there's always somebody, if anybody thinks they're tough, there's always somebody tougher than you are. I mean, fighting is not going to get us anywhere. It just causes more conflict. But at the time, I was so full of hurt. But what it did was, it really touched my heart. When I heard that story, and I heard how much he was hurting, that kind of began to change my whole attitude in terms of fighting anybody or wanting to hurt somebody. Because you never know. We never know our own end. I mean, that's why I really believe we have to be very careful about judging other human beings, because we don't know what our own end's going to be. We don't know.
Yeah.
We're on quite a journey here.
Yeah. And you've had quite the journey, Chief, and hurt people. And so that was the moment where you realized, okay, like, we have no idea, can't judge a book by its cover. Chief, for the last 55 years, you've been traveling literally all around the world preaching the unity of humanity. I've seen videos of you when this was not popular. 55 years ago, this message was not popular. There's been a lot of division, and you've been going around for 55 years preaching the unity of humanity. Chief, when did your spiritual awakening happen? And tell me about that and how this mission has been since then.
Well, by 1967, when you're carrying all this intergenerational trauma, my mom and dad had carried in them before, and their ancestors before them, and you're carrying this, I don't care if you're in athletics, I don't care what you do, until you heal that, it's going to take you down. That's just a fact. And it took me down. The alcohol, then got into drugs, and just, then of course, your athletic ability goes. I was the very end of my senior year, and I was just really, really, you get to the verge of suicide. You just feel like the pain's so intense. It seems so hopeless. You can never get out of it. And you look back and you see the mistakes you've made. You don't see the good things you've done. You get this depression. we've done way many good things if we think about it, and we have negative things. But when you're in that depression, when you get down, you're using alcohol and drugs and so forth and so on, and you're down on yourself. And I guess returned back to Walla Walla, and I just was I had to drop out of university. I didn't know what to do, and I went over to an elder's home, and this elder had been there and helped a lot. I knew him since I was in high school, and I went to his home and for some guidance. And while I was there, I looked over on the. He had many books. His whole huge home, many books, and I had just to pick up this one book, and I opened it up, and it was a prayer. I just happened to open it. There was many prayers in a prayer book. I opened it to this prayer, and this prayer is called the Tablet of Achmad. It starts off with, "He is the King, the all-knowing, the wise. Lo, the nightingale of paradise singeth upon the twigs of the tree of eternity, with holy and sweet melodies. Proclaimeth the sincere ones the glad tidings of the nearness of God," and so forth and so on. For some reason, those words just, tears started running down my eyes. And that night I wrote a prayer. I still have the prayer. It's the highest expression I've ever been able to make in terms of this power that has created this universe is so, it's beyond words. It's beyond the murmur of syllables and sounds. It's, in our Dakota language, we call it something sacred moving. Actually, the word Wakantaka, Great Spirit, actually is a word that came when we started interacting with Christian missionaries. But ours was something sacred moving. It was something beyond understanding. It was something that was so magnificent, it just went beyond words. That nothing. If I was to say the Creator is the quintessence of wisdom, I'm forced to admit the very embodiments of wisdom has been created by this Creator. If I call the Creator the inmost essence of unity, I'm forced to admit the very well springs of unity have been created by this power. So it's so great. And that experience really, I just felt layers upon layers of hurt and pain fall away. And alcohol, drugs fell away. Unhealthy relationship with women fell away. All these things just fell away. And I found myself truly a new human being. I call that, you might say, my spiritual honeymoon.
Yeah, aho, Chief, aho. Yeah. And so, Chief, I do want to kind of jump in here because, we could talk about your life forever, really, honestly,
Right.
and there needs to be a movie made about it, really, because there's so many highlights from it. But I do want to kind of jump into a few topics today. For there to be truth, there has to be, the truth will set us free. And the truth of what really happened to the Native American nations, the truth of what really happened at the boarding schools. The current educational system has not revealed that. It's not teaching these truths. And it is important for there to be truth, for there to be balance. So, Chief, is there anything that from your experience that is important for us to remember about the Native American tradition, what really happened in the true history for there to be balance restored?
Yeah, I think we need to have truth about all things. And our prophecies say in this day that we're living in right now, that everything that has been covered up in the winter, the long winter time, spiritual winter time we've been through the last 500 years is being uncovered. Everything. It's all coming for people to be able to see. And I guess that looking at the last over 500 years, we know that at the inevitable coming here of other peoples, because the world's round. I mean, and we're very curious beings, and so it's inevitable we would have come together here. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. And what I really see over the last 500 years that's gone on here is really a struggle between our spiritual being as human beings and our physical being. You know, this whole idea that science and physical science and physical weapons and physical force is what we're going to overcome anything that doesn't have this developed technology or developed architecture or whatever. And that is proven to not to be true. It's been proven that, I believe, these prophecies, these spiritual teachings that continue to today, in fact, they're stronger than ever, really demonstrated their strength for the last 500 years. So I guess I've in my older years have reframed this last 500 years, reframed it and see it as a preparation, a very tough preparation, by the way. I mean, I'm not justifying it and saying, oh, it's fine. But I'm saying if we can see it and understand it as a preparation for what we're doing today as having meaning, because would a loving, kind, compassionate, ever forgiving, glorious, gracious Creator punish us for living in a spiritual manner and praying every morning and every evening as we did? No, I don't believe so. I believe, of course, you know, only hurt people, only abuse people, only colonize people. But I believe also that there's a higher purpose to this. That literally we have gone and faced all the things that humanity is facing right now, our indigenous people have faced, and have found ways to address them. I believe that we've been prepared to help humanity make this next step. The next step is for us to awaken, all of us, to awaken that each of us is a sacred being. Each of us is a sovereignty, ancient and perishable and everlasting. Each of us is something far more than this earth suit we have. That it's time that we really come together, and I kind of see it as a process of differentiation. It begins with differentiation. If you took the 40 different learning theories and reduced them down to 3 interrelated processes, it'd be differentiation. That means we break things down. So it's good that we have women's groups coming together, men's groups coming together, different tribal groups coming together. That's differentiation. Then comes the integration process, where we see, you know, here's Brother Sam and I, we're going to integrate and we're going to find out those things that we have in common, those things that we are going to learn from each other, etc. But then comes the stage where it's generalization. So integration, I mean differentiation, integration, and generalization. Generalization means when I see you, I just don't see Dr. Sam Lee, my dear brother. I see standing before me an incredible human being, a sovereignty, ancient and perishable and everlasting, that has no gender, that has no ethnicity, that has no race, that has no class, but I see a divine being standing before me. This, I believe, is where we're coming to. We're going to see that we're not our earth suits. You know, it's great to have an earth suit. I mean, we'd be in trouble if we were just two voices speaking out here with no earth suits. But, you know, we're way more than an earth suit. I can tell you that. And you can't get hung up in your earth suit. I can tell you, in my 80th year, you know, it's like Crowfoot said it. He said, life's like the breath of a buffalo on a cold day, or a firefly on a warm summer night, or the shadows vanishing before the setting sun. That's life. It is. It goes so quickly. So that's why each and every precious moment we have on this Mother Earth is so important. And also to know that there's always a way to the Creator. Always. Always. No matter what conditions you're in, no matter what you're facing, there's always a pathway to the Creator. There's always that pathway. It begins with a prayer. And prayer is simply communicating with your higher power. Prayer is communicating with your higher self. What do you want to call it? And it's just getting to the point where you just begin communicating. Sometimes you're just forced to your knees and you just say, why? That's a prayer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
why? Can you give me a sign? Can you tell why?
Chief, I know recently you've been having gatherings in Palenque, and there's a prophecy of the union of the condor, the quetzal, and the eagle of North America, South America, Central America, and now recently it's become the hummingbird, and there's gatherings
Right.
happening. Can you explain for the people
Sure.
what this prophecy is and where we are at now and how this
Sure.
prophecy is unfolding?
Sure. Now, these prophecies, we hear about them all the time in 2024, 2023, but you got to look back to 1970, 71, 72. They're really, really at that time, these prophecies were only known in the area in which they were given. So the prophecy of the reunion of the condor and eagle is a Pacific prophecy that comes from actually Tiwanaku prior to the Incas. So it's a very ancient prophecy, and prophesied there would be a long, long spiritual wintertime, about 500 years. But after that wintertime, the eagle and condor would meet. And that occurred March 21st, 1971 through July 1972, and really culminated in an incredible gathering at Lake Titicaca, an all-day gathering there at the Island of the Sun, the Island of the
Stargate
Moon.
7, Lake Titicaca.
Yeah. So that happened. Now, from there, the prophecy promised that through that union of the condor and eagle, this would lead to the union of all the indigenous people across the Americas, which have, by the way, a very common root in trade and everything else in our ceremonies. And sure enough, that occurred in a process because, first of all, condors and eagles don't fly in Central America. So at first we thought, well, maybe it's the condor, eagle, and jaguar or boa. But then from the people themselves, the indigenous people south of Central America, came the quetzal. What a beautiful bird, quetzal. Which, by the way, the heart of the quetzal is Palenque, Chiapas, Mexico. Then we started really participating in the Amazon deeply in 2012 at Rio Plus 20. And slowly but surely, as we begin to really get a chance to know our Amazonian relatives, in 2020 emerged the hummingbird. The hummingbird seemed to be the bird that symbolized the Amazon. I'm sure there's other birds, by the way, that symbolize other people, and we're finding other people have birds from other places in the world. And maybe this is the gathering of the bird tribe. I'm not sure, but anyway, sure enough, 17th to the 22nd of March, 2023, we gathered in Palenque, representation from the eagle, hummingbird, condor, and quetzal. And we had, of course, solstice, equinox ceremonies. We had consultation, and we elected a council, the first council of the union, which has been working very diligently every month for about 3 hours. Every month we have a Zoom call. In the last month, it's been every week as we prepare for the gathering in Palenque. That'll be December. It'll be March 17th through the 22nd. And there comes the next stage of the prophecy will be initiated. And that is, first of all, on the environment. We're going to we've already developed an international treaty to protect and restore Mother Earth, but we're going to really bring that out. We've got to protect our Mother Earth. There's no question we're destroying our Mother Earth. So a very strong statement is going to come out from the indigenous people of the Americas on that. As well, we are initiating an indigenous ally-led global peace movement beginning here in the Americas, focused here in the Americas. We feel like we have no right to go out and tell anybody what to do unless we do it ourselves. Like in the Sundance teaching, it says, you can't take any place any place unless you've been there. Like you can't take anybody up to fast. You can't pierce them. You can't do that unless you've done it. How can you do it unless you've done it? And so that's where we really see that humanity needs to come. We need to come together. And, you know, the way the colonial nation states are going around Mother Earth now is it's just going right down the tube. I mean, all this killing, all this fighting over what? Our graves where we're going to be buried, or even if you're cremated, well, you don't even need that much space. just put you around like that. Is that what we're fighting over? What are we fighting over? I mean, we're human beings. Each of us love our children like anybody else loves their children. Most of us, I mean, unless if something happened to us. And so then we see what we're facing. And that's why we're saying we've got to deal with the Americas here. Why are people leaving their homes and trying to come into the United States? Why have we spent over $1 trillion on the war on drugs? And there's the drug issue with fentanyl and so forth is worse than ever. Because we're not getting down to first of all, the children, taking care of the children, the babies, the children, making sure that they're raised in a way that they don't have with a kind of love. They don't have to have alcohol and drugs to bring them happiness. Now, there certainly now are indigenous medicines. I'm not talking about all medicines. I'm talking about those medicines like fentanyl and so forth are just taken just to kill the pain. I'm not talking about our indigenous medicines or the heart medicine protocol, which I found can transmute 10 years of trauma into a positive healing experience.
Yeah. Chief Aho. And so this prophecy, which was more than 500 years ago, the bird of North America, the eagle and the condor, which happened in 1971, was fulfilled. And now Central America is coming together. And this prophecy says the union of the condor, the quetzal, and the eagle. When that happens, all the indigenous nations are going to come together. And now the Amazon has added the hummingbird in this gathering in March 17 in Palenque with the vision to unite all of the indigenous tribes of all of all of the nations under this banner of indigenous and the lesser peace on earth by 2030. Now, Chief, when I was riding around with you and we were riding around, you used to tell me the stories of back in the day, your grandfather or your father would tell you these stories of back in the day, Sitting Bull and all these great, amazing Native American chiefs, First Nation chiefs. Also, at that time, there was a smallpox that was happening, and they had the understanding that they had to unite the tribes, that they had to go from tribe to tribe and unite the tribes, that we are stronger together. And this has been your vision for 55 years, preaching about the unity of humanity. And obviously that didn't happen back then. And those Native American chiefs prophesied and this time around, it's a different type of virus. What can we learn from the past, Chief, so that history doesn't repeat itself? How can we unite under one banner to help Mother Earth? What can we learn?
Right. Well, let me say that the indigenous people of the Americas were reunited, so to speak, this past March 17th through the 22nd. We actually came together. We actually elected a council of 13 members, 7 women, 6 men, using a non-political, non-partisan electoral process. Has nothing to do with how we're electing people today. It's a brand new way of doing things. So that union has been complete. Now this is, again, it's fledgling. We're just beginning. But I think that the foundation of peace is having what we've been working on simultaneously, these 16 principles that came out of over 12 years of consultation, which we presented the United Nations in. See, that would have been 1996, presented the United Nations, these principles. And these principles are the foundation of which we have agreement across the Americas and many other groups like Compassion Games. They use the 16 principles. The Sign Networks use the 16 principles. There's many different groups. With these 16 principles, what the elders said is you need to understand the fundamental processes of the universe. What are the principles that underlie this universe? That was the first step, because that's where we're going to find unity among all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Because development comes from within. It doesn't make any difference where I come from on Mother Earth. It comes from within. That's one of the principles. Development comes from within. Others can help and assist, but it must emerge from the individual, the family, the community, and so forth and so on. It goes out. No vision, no development. We need a vision of possibility. And that's what the elders are saying. We're the vision. We have to be the vision. I mean, if I go around and look like I'm sucking on a lemon all the time, who in the world wants to follow my path? One line like this: we got to have some joy and happiness. People are looking for joy. That's the Creator loves us to be joyful and happy beings. That's what our purpose is, to be happy and joyful beings. But if we're not happy and joyful beings, who wants to follow our path? I mean, if I'm like this all the time, oh yeah, we're going to have this. Who's going to want to follow that path?
Yeah.
This has to be joy and happiness in a good way, to truly find the sacred beings we are. And you've done so much to help me do that, brother. I really appreciate your work. My gosh, you've been beside me here.
Joy and an honor, Chief. Joy and an honor. Yeah, I agree with you, Chief. You throw a good party, the people will come. And heaven is a party for sure. And the prophecies are now being fulfilled and created at the same time. Chief, I think that I love that the Board of 13, so the indigenous nations all gathered in Palenque, that central spot in Central America, and they formed a board of 7 females and 6 males. I love that, an odd number so the council can vote. And they drafted 16 principles based on the universal laws, which can stand the test of time. And now there is this vision to unite all indigenous nations, and which already happened with the board, but it's starting to spread now. Chief, can you tell us a little bit about, I love how you started the prayer today by saying, the divine masculine, hyper divine masculine has got us to where we are. But I think the indigenous nations understood something about the role of the divine feminine, the matriarch, the grandmothers, and the elders. And I think that's one big reason society has kind of lost sight of that. Can you tell us a little bit, Chief, about the role and importance of grandmothers, matriarch, divine feminine, as well as elders in this love revolution?
Sure. Well, many of our tribes, not only in the Americas, but other places in the world, are matriarchal. The lineage comes through the mother. And so we understood the way the Creator constructed this universe. I mean, again, not all the dimensions about mathematically how it's done, but we realize we have our Mother Earth. The Mother Earth is the foundation of all things. I mean, all of our life, our food, everything comes from Mother Earth. And we come from Mother Earth. And so the recognition that womankind are the representation of Mother Earth is so important in our culture, that the earth represents our mother, and womankind represents the earth. Womankind are the messengers of Mother Earth, or their representation. So that's why we see women as literally the life giver of the people. I mean, we can go around as men and do this and do that, but within the womb of the mother issues forth humanity, and we can slay one another back and forth, but it is womankind that brings forth life. And so there's just a tremendous respect for women and honoring women and honoring your female relatives. So I would say there's 2 wings to the eagle. One of the early teachings I heard. One is man and one is woman. They make the human. And until both wings of the eagle have equal power, respect, and honor, The eagle of humanity will never fly to its promised greatness, which is way beyond where we're at now. I mean, we're just beginning to wake up to our spiritual potentiality. Just beginning. We haven't even begun to know where we're on our way to, who we are. Really. We're way beyond the limitations put upon us. It's way beyond us. And now we're coming to that place where, through the power of the Creator, and I believe that the two most potent forces on the planet, on this mother, or in the universe, really, are spirit, the power of the Creator, which also a power of the Creator's science. So science and spirituality really are one. They're one. And this is the thing we have to understand and learn, is that science and spirituality are one. We have our own indigenous science based on spirituality. And I think that what we're finding is, as we, for instance, like with the heart medicine protocol, as we're taking what we know about indigenous medicines, and then we have science at the same time helping us to better understand how these fit together, we're creating what I call alloys, which take from these different medicines, we combine them through science and come up with medicines that can help us heal. I think this whole thing is about healing, about awakening to who we truly are. So many of our relatives, our human family, never get a chance to pause. They're just slaving away, working. They're in societies in which they don't have much time to think about the things we're talking about here. They're continuing their prayers too. Let's remember that sometimes people who are the most unheralded people, who are just humble people, living their life, taking care of their families, maybe they don't ever have done a podcast or whatever, but incredible human beings, because they really care and they love their families, they love humanity. There's so many human beings. So it's not about what we achieve in the outer world that's so important. It's what we achieve here in the inner world. This is what counts. I'm not anything I would achieve in the outer world, whether I had cars or big houses, I'm not taking it with me. It's like my dad taught me that lesson when Howard Hughes died. Now, Howard Hughes was somebody in my day who was the richest man in the world. And he ended up being a recluse in Nevada, in Reno, Nevada, in the penthouse, where he wouldn't cut his fingernails and so forth. Well, finally, they had this huge billionaire have his funeral, and there was about 6 people there. My dad said they were probably just lawyers fighting over his money. But he said, son, think about this. He said, did they come and they have big dump trucks dump his money into the hole? No.
Yeah. Chief, that's a great point. What does a man gain if he gains the whole world but loses his own soul? And,
Beautiful.
The internal. And you have exemplified that to the core for living for the soul for the last 50 years. Now, Chief, I remember a special moment that we shared. And, I love also what you said about the balance of the female and the male. We all come from a woman. Behind every great man is a greater woman. And until the male and the female, the magnetic and the electric are in balance, this is what's going to catalyze the Heros Gamos connection to source. And that's why male and female were created, to spark each other, to remember and catalyze that connection with source, and the male and the female. And that's also what you mentioned in spirituality and science. And we're living in this exciting time where spirituality and science are merging. We're starting to understand, as you spoke, that they are one and the same, and that we are all one. Chief, there was a special moment that I remember 2 weeks before Burning Man. You called me up and you said, brother, you ready to burn? And I remember, Chief Phil Lane Jr. and I, next thing I know, we're at the Burning Man, and we're living in a RV there. And one day you come out with one of the greatest Native American warriors of all time, Crazy Horse's Sacred Peace Pipe, and you say, brother, come with me. And we ended up in Brother Brock Pierce's RV, and with Brother Lucian Tarnowski, me, you, and praying for world peace, passing around this the original peace pipe of Crazy Horse, and we were praying for peace on earth, a lesser peace on earth by 2030. And I remember you had been preaching about this for a long time, Chief. I had a vision in my ceremony of a lesser peace, like something was going to happen in 2030. Lucian Tarnowski is reverse engineering peace on earth 2030 right now in the Up Games in Ibiza. Chief, can you tell us a little bit about this vision of 2030 and what's coming through for you?
Well, we can see on one hand, the prophecies talked about the collapse of the old world order, so to speak, old colonial nation states, the way things have been, that would collapse because it's built, whether it be capitalism or it be communism or socialism, it's all based on a materialistic understanding of who we are as human beings. It's somehow another many buyers and many sellers and so forth and so on are going to bring happiness, or we eliminate everybody except the proletariat and so forth. All those things talk about solving our issues through a materialistic manner. And so we can see the results of that. We can see the results of these systems that we've put into place in struggling over the material things on Mother Earth. And we can see that with what's happening in Europe, with happening in Ukraine, what's happening now in Israel and Pakistan and Palestine, we can see in other places in the world the increase in food prices, the desperation people have of leaving their countries and coming north, all the things in other places leaving and heading into Europe because their own homes, their own places where they live don't have food, they don't have justice, and so forth. So they're seeking this. So there is this true movement of relatives, not just indigenous people. Many members of our human family are awakening at the fact that we need to come together and really take action now and this is what we're doing in Palenque, to really take action towards having peace between us as members of this human family. Because if we don't do this, we're going to destroy ourselves. And 2030 just seemed to come out of the ether. I wasn't even thinking about the 2030 UN goals, Sustainable Development Goals. I wasn't thinking of anything else. It just came 2030. And then I found other people were thinking about 2030. We have these intense years ahead of us here to really wake up, because I'm in my 80th year. So if I go another 20 years, 25 years, that'd be incredible. As long as I go and still, can function. I don't want to be in a coma for 20 years. Anyway, but this is the time. This is the time. This is the time we have to come together, and we believe that indigenous people have this responsibility. It's part of our preparation, because you might say the arrows we have to be the arrows of forgiveness, the arrows of compassion, the arrows of wisdom, the arrows of kindness and compassion. This is what it's about. Who else can teach the person with the whip what love and forgiveness is about, except the person with the whip, except the person being whipped? How? And so indigenous people coming out with forgiveness. People can say, well, obviously, because I have some French and English and Irish background. How the French and the Irish and English ever got together, I don't know. But it also, that means I have to come to peace within my own self. I have to come to peace with my own self. In fact, all of us, if we go back and look deeply, we all come from the same seed way back. We were one in the first place. And we have these differences between us. I'm looking at this old wrinkled face of mine. But really, that's the 99.9% were the same. These are just secondary DNA that your hair color is different than my hair color. Your eye color is a little bit different. My eye color, your facial features a little bit different. Me, your structure, how your height. That's just a little bit of minor genetics. That's not the different. Really, we're the same, except for these minor things.
We come from the same seed frequency. And if the healing of one is the healing of all, and you always say this, and also if you want to change the world, change yourself. And so the indigenous nations are coming together. They've the one, every indigenous culture around the world has been colonized 7 to 11 generations of fresh trauma. And now you're saying, let's reverse that and shoot arrows of compassion, shoot arrows of forgiveness, shoot arrows from being the whip to forgiveness. And then from there coming into this unity. Now, I know the Kogi tribe in Ecuador has issued a video, Chief. A video has gone out from the Kogi tribe. And these Kogi tribes, a mama or a healer from this tribe down in Colombia and in the Amazonian area, they spend, I don't even know, 7 to 10 years in pitch black dark communing with the spirit world. And so they've been a frequency grid creepers for humanity. They've just been silently holding down the sacred grids so that humanity can exist. But they've just recently received the notification to come out from the top of the mountain, and to start interacting with humanity. And they sent out a message, Chief. Can you tell us what this message was?
Well, in essence, as you know, the Kogis, the Mamos, there's 4 different groups. They're about 100,000 people. And then they have the Kogis are the ones that are selected at birth to take on this very, very special role as the spiritual guides of the people. And they're the ones that, from the time of birth until they're reach puberty, they're in a cave in darkness, learning how to feel Mother Earth, learning how to develop that part of themselves through guidance of the elders. And the message that's come through the Kogis. Now, again, there's different groups of Kogis. So I'm not saying that this is every Kogi had this vision, but it was strong enough, it fits in with their vision that said that really humanity, there's a whole video that they put out, message that it's directed to the kings, the sultans, the presidents, the queens, and so forth, the leaders of the world, and essentially says that if you don't hear our message, if you don't begin to pay attention to our Mother Earth, that if you don't take action by June of 2024, you can expect by December 2025, only about a little over 30% of the world's life will be left. We're in that desperate a place that we've been knowing about runaway climate change for a long time, and it seems like it keeps pushing to the future. But when that happens, we would no longer have control. It just completely goes out of control. But I think that what we have to understand is, if we look at this, we got the climate change going on, which some people don't believe it's happening, that this is happening, that we are destroying Mother Earth. I think, by the way, I see it as from both sides. I think it's not either or. I think it's two things. I think we have the perfect storm. I think we have a natural change going on with the cycles of things, plus the human dimension. So the human dimension is feeding into what's already happening as a cycle. So it makes kind of a mega cycle that's happening. Mm-hmm. So we have that happening. Then we can see the incredible debt the world's in. I mean, it's just beyond. Just here in the United States, it's $34 trillion. I forget how much that is for every human being in the United States. But other countries, Canada, others, you can go around and see the world debt clock. We are in trouble. We just keep spending money, and all towards war. A lot of it towards war, or preparation for war, or things we do to try to stop people from fighting wars. All these different things that are happening, and prices are going up. People are having to foreclose on their mortgages, where a lot of people don't have a home. But these prices that we're paying, people are having to pay these in India, having to pay them everywhere. So we have the economic situation. Then we have the political situation, which is just crazy. So it's a combination of all these things in which we believe that the world needs an alternative. And that's what Palenque is about. We have developed over these last 55 years a solid foundation of what the new governance system looks like for the coming millennium, so to speak. That's there already.
Yeah. So I think it's really important. These mamos who are trained since a young age to have a direct communion with the heart of Mother Earth and with all of, if you want to say, the invisible world, have come out of their recluse, and they have warned the kings and queens and leaders of the nations that if we do not get our act together before a certain date, by December 2025, only 30% of the population, and this has happened before, will remain. Like, there's been, Mother Earth has survived before and human beings have not. I mean, there's been 3 seedings, right? And so this can happen when things are out of balance. So this warning has gone forth. And now, Chief, according to the prophecy of the union of the condor, quetzal, and the eagle and the hummingbird, when they come to, the indigenous nations all come together, right? Then the new earth, the prophesied as the Native American elders, chiefs saw, the time of a new world, as Bob Marley sang about Zion, as Jesus prophesied New Jerusalem. This time they were all tuning into the same time period where Earth will go through a major piece. And this timeline is still valid, but what we're being faced with now is a timeline of coming together in unity. Now, the 13 elders that are coming together in Palenque, a very special land here, March 17, and they're representing all of the indigenous nations of all of the world, are coming together. They formed the Peace Council. They're shooting arrows of forgiveness. They're coding the frequency of the land, and they've formed 16 principles based on universal laws for equality that are based upon the elders. When the multitude of elders, there is wisdom. And so the elders are coming together for the behalf of humanity. This issue has gone forth from the Mamos. I'm going to Ecuador in May, as we're going to do sacred grid work on a very sacred piece of earth down there. And so we're starting to come together and unify. Now, Chief, I know I don't have too much time here because I have another interview, but how can we support you, Chief? I know that we have, the Palenque meeting is starting to happen. I'll put a link in the bottom here on how to support this gathering in Palenque,
Beautiful.
Mexico, in the podcast show notes. And if you can support our indigenous elders, our indigenous tribes from all over the world, who are forgiving and uniting humanity, it would be an honor and a joy to receive whatever it is you can give for this special cause. Chief,
Beautiful.
any last words of wisdom for us here today?
Well, and I really appreciate that, brother, that you're going to put, we have a GoFundMe, and really this is just about basic food, transportation of the elders, to come together for this really incredibly important initiation of this global peace movement, led by indigenous people and allies. Allies are very important, to really begin peace on earth by 2030, what it's about. So I'll share that link. It'll be very helpful. I guess that I would just say this, that think well of yourself. We need to think well of ourselves. We have been given an incredible gift, that sometimes that the condition of humanity doesn't recognize it, but the elders certainly are telling us. And that's elders and spiritual leaders from many different backgrounds everywhere on Mother Earth. Think well of yourself. Know that what you have to share is very important, even if it's a prayer, if it's contributing to good things that are happening in the world, whatever it is. Think well of yourself. You are a sacred being, a sovereignty, ancient and perishable and everlasting, and that we're only here for a very short time. And our purpose here is to grow spiritually, just like the purpose in our mother's womb was to grow physically. to grow our earth suit. Well, here we're growing our you might say, our spiritual suit, so to speak. And time will come when we'll leave our earth suit behind, but those qualities we're developing of kindness, compassion, love, justice, all those qualities, those spiritual qualities which are infinite, that's our purpose here. And it's not to acquire material things. It's about serving humanity. It's about uplifting others and yourself. You can't uplift others unless you uplift yourself. That's what it's about, from my perspective.
Aho, and so it is.
That's
And
what you're
so
doing.
love yourself. Think well about yourself. Share your truth. Life is short. It comes and goes. Focus on spiritual development because those things last forever. The material will fade. What does a man gain if he gains the whole world but loses his own soul?
Exactly.
And now this amazing movement is happening, and we are the ones we've been looking for. Chief, can you fade us out with a Native American, or I know you like to some prayers or a chant? Can you end this with one of your chants or prayers?
Sure. I'm gonna sing a little song. Wayankie Chinupa Kile Wakanyalo Wayankie. But what it says in those few words, Wayankie is a word that calls upon, summons the power of the universe here, summons it here, wherever you may be. Open your hearts and minds to this song. It calls that, and it says, Chinupa Kile Wakanyalo. It says, the pipe, it is holy of holies. So what's it really saying? The bowl, which represents the mineral people, all the land, earth, that's sacred. The stem, which represents the plant people. All these plant relatives are sacred. They're sacred. And then with each of our bundles, you'll see a representation of the animal people, whether it be eagle feather or buffalo hide or whatever it is. That the animal relatives, they're sacred. They're sacred. And then, of course, when you put it all together, you have the human being. From the mineral, we have the power and cohesion of unity. Cohesion, that's the power of the mineral people. We have the power of growth like the plant people. We have the power of the senses like the animal people, not to the degree they have, but we've learned how to watch those animal people, and they can tell us when a storm's coming because the tympan in the air is like a barometer going up and down. Many different things. But then when you put the pipe together, the male, which represents the stem, and the bowl, which represents the womankind, again, the earth, you put those together, you create life. And when you turn that pipe up, here's the bowl, that mouth in the bowl like this, that's the human being. So when it says that's holy. In fact, we sing this song when we're preparing the pipe to pray with it. Because when you're praying with that pipe, it's like praying with your own being. That's why you have to treat it well. So I'll sing that song. And it's been a great one, brother. Thank you so much for all you are doing for humanity. All the relatives in Thailand, in Europe, all those places you're going to, for coming up here. You had nothing. You came up here for nothing. You came up here to help your relatives. You even had to hitchhike. Your car brought up.
True.
But you got up here. You got up here, and the medicine's moving really well up here. Really well.
Beautiful.
I mean, DJ's doing an incredible job. All the other relatives you met up at Little Shoe Swap, the Oliver, Arnuz, Felix, all those relatives are doing well, doing really well, and their families and loved ones, and others now that have joined us. Wayankie, Chanupa, Kile, Wakayelo, Wayankie, 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 Chanupa, Kile, Wakayelo, Wayankie. Wayankie, 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 Chanupa Kile, Wakayelo, Waiankie. Fourth one, last one. Waiankie. 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 Chanupa Kile Makayelo Waiankie. Ho, 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 ho.
Aho,
Ho,
aho,
Maui Meado,
aho.
Masapa Meado, Haulichate. Washte,
Great
aho.
spirit. Great spirit.
Yeah.
We see now all the indigenous nations coming together with forgiveness and compassion in their wings and healing in the male and the female, in complete balance, coming from the eagle on a swift wind as the spirit, the great spirit rides, and the merging of North America, South America, Central America, blessings and avalanches of God's abundance, joy and wisdom and power is flooding upon this gathering in March 17 in Palenque, Mexico. Every one of the funds that are needed are now being poured in for great impact on humanity, for peace on earth and a lesser peace on earth by 2030. We give gratitude for Chief Phil Lane Jr. for the last 55 years riding around the world preaching about the unity of humanity. May his breath be alive as he sees this fulfillment of these prophecies being fulfilled, and may he have good health and right on. We give gratitude for his life. Bless him with 10 times the abundance in this lifetime and 100 times in the one to come. And we give gratitude in advance. Thy kingdom, queendom come. Thy will is now being done on earth as it is in the highest heavens. Taisha intidoe, Taisha intidoe, Taisha intidoe. Spoken as it is stated now, and so it is done.
Oh. Oh.